Who's your emergency contact? Who should notify in the case of death? Welcome to the USP. We can continue the theme from the other day when I was talking about Lou, who was Mexican, but was from an Asian gang out of San Diego, and how, regardless of how he did his time leading up to the time he was with me in Florence, the way he left the yard, like I said, it's not how you start, but how you finish. And the way he left the yard didn't leave a good impression on the people that knew him, the people that befriended him, and the people that cared about him, right? Because, in there's always going to be situations where it's not going to be easy, regardless if that's getting into a confrontation, regardless if you fucked up and owe some money. Most of us, and I'll just speak for myself, when I went into the prison system, before I went into the prison system, I smoked some weed and drank a little bit here and there. But when I got in there, I ended up being introduced to all sorts of stuff. I've never seen heroin in my whole life. I know about meth because, Utah was like the meth capital of the world back in the mid-90s. Everybody was out here cooking up meth in hotels and trailers and all that stuff, And I ran into the powder coat maybe a couple times, But like I said, out here, I smoked some weed and I drank a little bit. But when I got into the penitentiary, I'm moving around. I'm hustling, doing everything, whatever. And I started sampling stuff. And I was under the influence almost my whole bit, I did everything from meth, coke, to heroin, to drinking and smoking. But everything I did, I had bills. There were certain times where I ran out my bills and things didn't happen on my end the way I had hoped or planned to. But I didn't duck and run. I just went to the people that I owed money to and say, hey, look, man, I got this situation going on. I got you. Just give me a little more time. And being able to have that conversation and rapport with everybody that I deal with, made it, we kept it on a respect level, because at the end of the day, before I came home, I paid all my bills, and I always did. I always took care of all the responsibility that I had, all my obligations that I had. But there was times where things didn't work out and it was slow. And the dudes that I owed would come like, hey, what's up, man? I'm like, hey, man, kick back. I got you. I'll take care of it, this and that. And there's been a couple of occasions that I've shared with you where somebody didn't want to understand the situation and wanted to jump out there and act like they were tough, like the dude J-Rock when I was in Florence. When that happens, all right, I'm not trying to burn you. I'm trying to take care of my business. But, we've been locked down and whatever, and you don't want to take that into account and you want to push up on me, well, then fuck you, So for me, like when people run off because they owe bills or they run off because there's a confrontation, there's an issue brewing, and they don't want to be in the mix or whatever, that's a stripe off, that's a check mark under the Buster Claw, because for me, my bid hasn't been smooth sailing, but when it was tested, when it was time to deal with situation, I've always dealt with it the way that I believe that you're supposed to deal with it. That's head up, on the front line, no ducking, standing your grounds, and so forth, So when Lou did what he did, it was kind of disappointing because, like I said, he was a very likable dude. Now, pivoting to another guy, there's been, throughout the course of my time, there's been a lot of homies that came through that were not Asian, but ran the Asian Islander car. And the guy I'm speaking about today, his name is David David Moretta. We call him Aztec. And he was at the FCI Florence, got himself caught up or whatever, and got sent across the street to the USP. And when he came through, he's Mexican. He's a little Mexican, a little bit shorter than me. He's probably like 5'4", not much shorter than me, but a little bit shorter than me. And he came to me. He's like, "Hey man, my name's Aztec, but I run Asian. I'm from TRG out of Fresno." And TRG, if anybody know what that is, that's a Tiny Rascal gang. That's one of the most known Cambodian gangs that started out in California. They've spread it throughout different regions. They're out there in Boston. They're up there in Seattle. They're down in Long Beach. The TRGs were the ones that got into it with the Mexicans back in the late 80s, early 90s that caused a green light to be put on the Asians. And these dudes, for their part, they handle their business and they're a little wild. I ran into a few of them that in the feds, not very many. I guess a lot of people that get caught up, they end up in FCIs and stuff. But Aztec, he ended up coming to Florence. And, like in every gang, somebody said that, yeah, you always see like maybe a white dude in a Mexican gang and a black gang or whatever, but you never see any other races outside of whites in a white gang. And that's true, because most of the white gangs are neo-Nazi, white supremacists, and skinheads and all that stuff. So I don't think anybody that's of color would be accepted in those organizations, right? But the reason I want to share my story about Aztec today is, I mentioned him before, is to really give him his flowers and let him know, to give him my love and respect for the way he conducted himself while we were in Florence. In Florence, I got there in 2017, and at that time I had 5 years left. So by the time Aztec come, it's about 2019, 2019. I got a couple of years left, and we had an incident with another Cambodian dude named Popper from ABZ, Asian Boys. And, I shared this story where, first, if it was up to me, I would have never let him on the line as far as like not stopping from coming out of the chute. We never go to the guards, to the cops, to the COs about stopping somebody coming from the line, coming out of the chute and getting on the line. But knowing his history, as soon as he hit the line, I would have already busted his head and ran him off just because he checked in at another spot in Atwater. But prior to him coming to Atwater, he had called some of the homies that was on the streets that knew me and pleaded his case. And the homies out here on the street that I love and respect, they're like, "Man, that's a good homie. Just give him an opportunity, give him a second chance," and so on and so forth. There was a little friction between the homies because one homie asked me to extend the favor, while the other homie's like, "Man, why are you putting Mesa in that predicament? Just let Mesa do what the fuck Mesa do," because they understand how I operate. But being that I respected the homie that asked me to extend a courtesy to Popper, I did so. But when Popper came on the yard, he proved himself not worthy of the extended courtesy. You know what I mean? So he ended up having to get voted off the island. So at this time, we go into the gym, me, Lou, another Filipino and white. He's like Filipino, white and black. He's all mixed. The homie Tran. It was only at that time, and Aztec, the only that time there was only like 5 of us. So we go into the gym, and have a conversation about Popper. Like, hey man, this here ain't working out. You know, I'm getting a lot of complaints from him. I allowed him to stay on his compound with the understanding that he take care of his business, with the understanding that he don't put himself and the rest of us in a situation over this fucking dope bills. And obviously, that's not working out, right? So we decided to vote him off the island. Now, for my part, being the representative, I had the last say in the outcome of what we need to do. But for me, I've never been one of those guys to send somebody to go do something that I wasn't willing to do. But but my mindset that I have is that we all live under this umbrella, a car, Asian Islander car. And with every benefit that you get from it, you have to be able to shoulder some of the burden and some of the responsibility to keep the car kosher too. It can't be just the same people every time putting in the work while somebody else here on the sideline reaping the benefits of it, right? And by the time I got to Florence, I've already had a track record of being on the front line, doing the things that I'm supposed to do, taking care of the business that I need to take care of. Like I said, as soon as I got to Florence, the homies that knew that I was leaving Lewisburg, they shot me kites, telling me about the politics that was going on in Florence they did that they weren't cool with, and they were expecting me to deal with it, which they know I am. You know, so for me, I bring it to the table to the homies, and then I ask for volunteers. Now, if nobody volunteers, then me being the spokesman, me having the responsibility for the car, I will take it upon myself to deal with the situation. But at this time, I had a couple years left. Maybe three years left, and I've already lost 636 days good time. And as I've repeated, I whine about it all the time. I never got a halfway house. So I'm like, anybody want to volunteer to take care of this business? And at first, nobody stepped up, And I told them, look, at the end of the day, man, I'm not your, yeah, I'm the spokesman, but I'm not your like dictator. I'm not gonna be like, hey, you go do this, you go do that. I've never felt that I should ever do that, nor do I feel that I was in a position to do that, even though the authority was given to me by the people around me, nominating me to be the spokesman. I've always wanted to run things as a collective. Like I said, we're a group, then we all should have a say in whatever transpires throughout the course of our time while we're there, you know? So, but knowing that if I have to go deal with this, I'm gonna end up losing some more good time, and I might catch a case over it because, when you start to get close to home, like in the beginning of my bid, I got involved in certain things, some stabbings and some riots and all that stuff. When they look at your record and they see that, okay, you still got 20 years left to do. Yeah, you stab somebody over here. We're not worried about it because we still got you for another 2 decades. But if I go stab somebody later at the end of my bid, they're going to look at it, oh, this dude's about to go home in a couple of years. Well, he just stabbed somebody. Well, let's charge him and give him another 3 to 5 years. That's how it really works. Like when people have a lot of time already, they don't really get charged for anything that they're doing. But if they're short or if they didn't come in with that much time and they get involved in something serious, they can get a new charge and some more time. So, of course, I've been down 20 years already at this time, 21 years already. And, this is the first time that when I got to Florence, realized that I might have an opportunity to go home. Because when I first came in with a 26-year sentence, going home was the first thing from my mind, because there's no way that I could project myself 2 decades into the future. But by the time I got to Florence, I'm looking at my date. I'm like, damn, I just got a handful of years left. You know, I went through 4 elections. I counted my time through the presidential election. And at this time, it was already the fifth president that was elected. So I'm like, man, one more election and I'm out of here, right? One more election and I'm good to go. And the 2020 election was coming up. So I'm like, man, I could possibly really make it. So of course that played in my mind while we're debating on what's going on with the situation with Popper. And I told the homie, I was like, hey, look, at the end of the day, it's my responsibility because I'm the one that made the decision to let him on the yard, out of my respect for the homie, doing the homie a favor. So at the end of the day, it's going to be my responsibility to make sure what needs to get done gets done. And when I said that, the homie Aztec stepped up and he was like, nah, homie, let me go do that. Aztec's young and he's small, and I'm not trying to like doubt his ability or anything like that. I just don't want to be in a situation where I send somebody to go put in some work and they get hurt because the other guy is bigger or because the other guy knows how to fight, So the homie Z, he's from ABZ, but he's from ABZ out of Las Vegas. He's like, man, let me take care of that. They're from the same gang but different branches, right? So, long story short, concerning that, they end up taking care of the business, end up hitting Popper at the wreck or whatever, and they both go to the shoe. While they're in the shoe, we send them care packages and stuff to, look out for them. So when they come back out, fast forward a year later, we had another incident with Fordrick, a Hawaiian dude out of Hawaii, with the same bullshit, lying to people come crying to me, and I had already warned Forge about, hey, I know everything you've been doing throughout the system. I get kites, I get letters concerning everything. I know what's going on. So, but for him, he's never he never checked in. He's never ran away from a fight or anything. It's just when he gets himself into debt or whatever to clean his face, the homies would be like, hey, go take care of this and we'll take care of your bill. So he's always been able to save his face by putting in the work. So when he comes to Florence, I explained to him everything about what's going on. I gave him an opportunity to do the right thing, and he just kept lying to us. And now he's putting us in a situation with the Bloods and some other people. The shot caller for the Bloods out of CB came and hollered at me about him, and it was to the point where it was getting serious. So when the Blood homie came and hollered at me about it, I told him point blank, I said, listen, homie, I'm not going to pay nobody's bills. So if you're trying to have this conversation, then you already know only one thing can happen from this. Because obviously you don't feel that he's going to ever take care of his responsibility, and you're tired of waiting, and I'm not going to pay his debt. So if we're trying to have this conversation, then you know where this leads up to. He's like, yeah, I know. I said, so what's up? He goes, man, I'm tired of the dude lying to me. I said, all right. So we went back, had a little powwow with the homies, and at this time, I got like a year and a half left to go home, right? So, the homie Tran, he hasn't been in any trouble. He's a Vietnamese homie out of Seattle, and he was short too, right? At the time, it was only me, Aztec, Tran, and a dude named Eddie who was in a freaking wheelchair, right? So our selective, our options are limited. So I'm like, you know what? Aztec, he jumped up. He's like, man, let me handle that. And I'm like, you can't be the same one always volunteering to take care of the garbage. We have to spread it out. We have to, make everybody be responsible to keep the car, you know, with a good reputation. Everybody is obligated and should share the burden and the responsibility. But he's like, man, there ain't much of us left. Tran's about to go home. You're about to go home. He's like, me, I ain't tripping. But he can't go by himself. You know what I mean? So I'm like, all right, well, then me and you will go, and we'll take care of this. So we planned it for a few days from that conversation. But the next day, the native homie, Burning Breath, him and Aztec come to me. He's like, hey, Mesa, this man, I got love for you, homie. And I know you're about to go home. You're getting close. You already been down over 20 something years. Um, let me handle that. I said, yeah, but you're native. You can't go over there. And he goes, nah, man, let me handle that. I don't give a fuck. And so much love to Burning Breast. And he was like, man, let me handle that for you. Me and Aztec will go handle that. Well, for me, I couldn't just give him the green light to go do that. So I went and hollered at the native shot caller. At the time, they had a dude named Killer, who was the representative for the Warrior Society that was on the yard. Just before the Warrior Society got into with the rest of the natives and got knocked off the yard. So at this time, I went up to Killer and said, hey, look, your homie's trying to volunteer to go handle this business that's got to do with my people. Are you okay with it? At the time, we have an alliance with the native. And Killer's like, nah, yeah, I'm good with that, whatever. And I said, hey, of course, when the situation comes where you need one of us to help you out with something, then we're obligated because one of you guys volunteered to help us out in our situation. So when the time comes, we're going to be obligated, a favor for a favor. So Killer gave the green light. I went back to Aztec and Burning Breast, and it's like, yeah, you're good to go whenever you want to do it. So the next day, it was supposed to be a couple of days later, but the next day they went and handled the business, went over there and beat the brakes off of Forge, threw him in the gutter. Like, they were walking up the chow and going through the gate. There's this dip where the gutter is at. And that's where they started bombing on him. Boom, threw him in the gutter, stomped him out, knocked him out unconscious, and left out. But, I share that story is that, it don't really matter what race you are, or where you come from, whatever gang you belong to. If you're a Mexican dude in an Asian gang, if you're a white dude in a black gang, a white dude in a Mexican gang, like, men is men. And Aztec, David Moretta, he's one of the good homies that came through that he was a youngster, but he carried himself on man time. We never had no issues with the homie, and he always stepped up to the plate when the time came. And I'm grateful for that love for him and Burning Breast, because toward the end of my bid, You know me, I'm not home until I'm home. So whatever transpired during the time that I'm incarcerated, whatever comes up, I'm gonna meet a head up and deal with the situation. But I'm grateful for the love and the respect that the homies have for me that allowed me to step back, allowed me to stay out the way until I was able to come home and be here today, you know. So to all the good men that's incarcerated, to all the good men that I've been around, man, much love and respect to you. And I really, really pray that you guys find your way back home someday. Welcome to the USP.